NewVoice Summit apresenta Keynote Speaker Internacional, Bradley Metrock, CEO Project Voice.
Hi, I'm Bradley Metrock, CEO of Project Voice. Thank you for being here. Thanks to the NewVoice Summit for letting me be here. I'm honored to be part of this event and honored to be talking to you about the growth of voice in general and trends in the market. The way I look at that, I don't tend to gravitate toward stats about adoption of smart speakers or adoption of voice assistants on mobile devices or other things like that. Those stats are out there and they're valuable. I tend to gravitate toward use cases. And in this talk, I'm going to talk about some key use cases, several of which a lot of people who work in the space, look at the space, invest in the space, don't even know about. If the use cases are growing, the market is healthy. If the use cases aren't growing, the market is not healthy. And that's when you start to get the accusations of it being a gimmick, a fad, or whatever. So that's what I'm going to cover. I'm going to share my screen and we'll be off and running. So let me hit play from start. NewVoice Summit 2021. Thank you very much for having me. Project Voice X, a quick plug here. In-person event in Florida, Destin, Fort Walton Beach. Amazon and Microsoft are both presenting sponsors. If you are doing anything in this space, you should take a good look at attending this. The website's projectvoice.ai. A lot of business gets done. You know, not that many people go to in-person events right now, but the people who go are hungry, real hungry for doing business, really skews senior level. So check it out. We'd love to have you there. Your company needs a strategy for voice technology. I wrote this for Harvard Business Review a couple of years ago. A lot of people have found this valuable. Check it out. This Week in Voice VIP, this is the Substack newsletter I write. 30,000 people read it. And soon I'll be back to writing. I'm on a bit of a hiatus right now. It'll be back in the next 30 days or so. There's three parts to our business with Project Voice. The first is what we call Project Voice Advisory Group, in which we work with mid-sized to large companies to integrate voice and conversational AI into their existing business. The second part is what we call Project Voice Catalyst, which is our consulting arm where we work with companies born native to voice and AI, working with some aspect of the technology, and we work with them to basically accelerate their company through thought leadership, lead generation, investment in some cases, really a growing part of our business. And then the Project Voice Media Group, which is our media and content arm. This is Voice First FM, our podcast network heard in 56 countries. This is This Week in Voice, the podcast, starting back up this fall. This is our Project Voice series, which is real, in-person and virtual events both. So we do a lot with that too. So voice first, you hear this term a lot, and this is where I typically start my presentations. So I like to sort of touch on the fact that when we're in the womb, when we're out of the womb, all we have is our mother's voice. It's part of our humanity. When we grow, we acquire an inner voice that will guide us for the rest of our life. So it always stood to reason that as technology evolved over time, it would arc toward being voice-driven, voice-oriented, what we call voice first. And when you look at it this way, when you think about it this way, you realize this is not a gimmick. This is a technology that's here to stay, and that's what we've seen. VoiceBot.ai produced this information here. If you don't know that website, which you probably heard several times by this point in the conference, you should check them out. The bottom bar is 2019 US smart speaker market share, 60%-ish for Amazon, about 25% for Google. And in 2020, Amazon had decreased 8% or so, while Google had increased basically the same amount. At this point in time, we were seeing a real duopoly emerge between Amazon and Google. And that's the way this was going, is that what one took from the other, what one took, they took from the other. And You had several smaller independent players rounding out the rest of the market. Well, the pandemic's come along and upset this, but still it's worth noting this is kind of the way things were. And to some degree, still the way things are now. So Amazon and Google dominating the market, but perhaps with an asterisk, and we'll talk about that at the end. Early successes of note for voice technology. This is where we're going to spend the bulk of our time in this presentation. And this really paints the picture that I want to paint in terms of showing that this technology is on its way to, ubiquity and permanent utility. So Novel Effect. Novel Effect was the first company funded by the Amazon Alexa Fund, powered by Techstars, and what they do is they have a mobile app as well as voice integration in different areas on the web and some other technologies they've developed. And basically they listen to one human being reading to another. And a lot of times it's reading classic stories, Cat in the Hat or Dr. Seuss or whatever. And the technology will detect where you are in the story, chapter 4, chapter 1, the end, whatever, and marry up a soundscape to the live reading. And it sounds like a gimmick until you realize that this technology has been really positively associated with a lot of great educational outcomes. They went on Shark Tank, they got an offer, they turned it down, and then went on to raise many millions of dollars. They were one of the very first successes coming out of voice. The Stephen King Library. So this is an Alexa skill created by New York City-based Skilled Creative and one of the big publishers in the world, Simon Schuster. And the way this works is that you tell this Alexa skill basically the last Stephen King book you've read, and then you answer some other questions, and then it will give you a list of Stephen King books out of the 50 plus books that he's written. It'll tell you the next one you ought to read and give you a little bit of a list on the next ones you should read. And really effective promotional device. And frankly, it's a glimpse into the way that conversational AI will work moving forward for discoverability and digital commerce. So, right now, the way people find out about new books is that Google searches and word of mouth, as well as social media. Voice has the opportunity to circumvent and get out in front of all of that. And with Stephen King Library, you start to see it. Alexa, what am I holding? So if you have an Alexa device with a front-facing camera, if you hold a object up to the camera and say, Alexa, what am I holding? If it has a barcode, it'll scan the barcode and tell you what you're holding, and it can reorder it on the spot if you want to do that, if it's something Amazon sells. If it doesn't have a barcode, it'll attempt to scan it, with machine learning and still try to tell you what you're holding. This feature of Alexa devices with screens is transformative, and it is incredibly important for people who have low vision or who are blind. And for many families, it's alone a reason to purchase these devices and put them all over the house. Really important use case for voice, really important accessibility use case, period. Alexa Guard. So this is transformed insurance. So this is where you set an Alexa device, and Google's got something similar, I believe. Some other niche voice assistants have this same sort of thing. And you're seeing insurance providers start to use this, where it will listen to an environment, your home, office, whatever, and benchmark the volume. It'll listen for what that environment normally sounds like, and when it starts to deviate from that normalcy, if it hears broken glass, if it hears movement at an odd hour, if it hears no movement at all during the day, it can have instructions on what to do. Call 911, call a relative. You see this with a lot of senior citizens living at home. You see a lot of different uses for this, and it's transforming the way we think about risk to be able to have these type of devices in play. Google Recorder. So this is a Google ability to transcribe and in some cases translate notes, verbal notes. The thing about this is that it is offline, so it does not utilize the cloud, and we're seeing a lot of interesting use cases for voice that don't involve the cloud. And there's accessibility inherent in that. There's some other things going on, but that's an entire realm of what's going on with voice technology that is really important to a lot of people, sometimes poorer people, rural people. When the internet cuts out, what are you going to do? And Google Recorder is a good example of some of the innovation going on with local/offline use cases. Smart speakers and college freshmen and senior citizens. So I often talk about this in every presentation I give. We live in the so-called information age, but we live lonely and isolated and depressed lives. And college freshmen and senior citizens are the most depressed of anybody. And interestingly, they have a lot in common. They're both in new environments, meeting new people without that much exposure to family. And when you take smart speakers and you introduce them either into dorm rooms or into the rooms where senior citizens are staying, if they're aging in place in their home, or if they're in a nursing home in their room, or even when you put them in common areas in either of those two places, you start to see positive things occur. For college freshmen, they attend class more. They're more participatory in class. They make better grades. They drop out less and they kill themselves less. For senior citizens, similar outcomes, better disposition, more participatory, better adherence to drug regimens, and they live longer. It's crazy, and it's really, really profound, and certainly of note when, for anybody thinking about how voice technology has grown. Speech pathology and Project Understood. This is going to be the only one I show a video for. Speech pathology, speech pathologists have observed that introducing smart speakers into environments with young children improves speech impediments rapidly. What Project Understood is, it's a partnership between Google and the Canadian Down Syndrome Society to improve Google Assistant for folks who have Down syndrome, for which they're not often not understood at all. This video really kind of explains it all. I'm going to play it.
I use my voice for all kinds of things, like nailing a job interview,
meeting a cute person at a bar,
impressing you with my karaoke skills.
But I can't use it
to ask about the weather.
Hey, girl, what's the forecast today?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Or call my mom when I need help.
Hey, Google.
Because right now, voice technology doesn't always understand people with Down syndrome, which sucks.
Nobody likes to be misunderstood
or left behind.
I may sound different, but I still have a lot to say.
So we're partnering with Google,
so we can solve it together using our own voice.
The more voices we have,
the better the technology will get.
So we can create a future where every person with Down syndrome is understood.
We got this.
I'm teaching Google.
I'm teaching Google.
I'm teaching Google.
Donate your voice
at projectunderstood.ca.
Hey, Google. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Powerful video, and let me see if I can prevent it from playing again. Let me click right back there. Just a remarkable video there. You know, we forget how important this technology is, and rather than talk about any particular statistic, that a video like that says it all. The last bullet point here, Canary Speech, Carnegie Mellon University. So it's important to note that with voice, so much is not about the words we say, but how we say it. And Canary Speech is a startup here in the United States that listens to the words coming out of your mouth and can diagnose one of about 10 different diseases with that information. Carnegie Mellon did something similar last year and made news for it. They came up with a COVID test that listens to your voice, and depending on your vocal intonation and other characteristics of your output, determines if you have had or have COVID. And the confidence level of it is not enough for FDA approval yet, but still it's been valuable for a lot of different people, and just crazy to note what's going on. So I want to touch on this real quickly as well. During the pandemic, we have seen, you can debate whether it's the first killer app or not, but because the talk years ago was what's Voice's killer app going to be. And over the course of the pandemic, we've seen the true emergence of the call center as a killer app for voice. And what that means is that if you have a call center for your business and you have an integrated conversational AI, you're behind. Like, it's not a nice to have doing something with voice or conversational AI. You're behind competitively. You're paying more for manpower. You're keeping customers on the phone longer, and you're not satisfying your customers, and you're not as profitable if you don't have conversational AI. That's a definition of a killer app. And it's interesting that we have arrived at this point where voice and AI is a defining attribute of some part of business, and here we are. So I want to touch on, if I can get this to stay still, note the date on here, December 10th, 2020. Americans think big tech isn't so bad after all. And then 1 month later, big tech has helped trash America. Real interesting conversation going on right now with big tech, and it will define the growth and trajectory of voice and AI moving forward. It's why that the Amazon Google duopoly is not as important now coming out of the pandemic as it was before it. Yes, those companies are doing really important work, but it's a wide blue ocean now, and independent players are as important as they have ever been. When we look at use cases and verticals where I expect to see the biggest impact for voice and AI over the next 12 months, automotive, healthcare, hospitality, and kind of a dark horse, gaming. I think you're going to start to see those, all four of them, get to the point where, for different reasons, it would be part of a different presentation, voice and AI is indispensable. So I'm Bradley, CEO of Project Voice. My email address is here. My Twitter handle's here. You can reach out to me there. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I hope to hear from you. Again, it's an honor to be part of this conference. Really cool to see how different countries approach talking about this topic. I encourage you to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Bom, estou muito satisfeito de ter o Bradley, é um cara que eu acompanho. Fatalmente, falando em português, ele não vai entender se ele estiver assistindo, mas é um cara que está há alguns anos nesse mercado da voz, desenvolvendo o Project Voice, falando coisas tão relevantes para a gente, como essa questão que mexe, né, conosco, das crianças com síndrome de Down, trabalhando com o Google para ter inclusão, para serem reconhecidas. A questão do use case, cada vez mais, tecnologia que não tem use case, ela, de fato, ela não vai para frente, a gente sabe disso, e a voz tem tido muitos use cases muito relevantes. Ele citou agora no final 4, que eu particularmente acredito muito, todos eles vão ser falados aqui, né? Automobilístico, games, quer dizer, todas essas áreas que estão sendo impactadas pela voz, e efetivamente a gente vai ver um boom somente nos próximos 12 meses. Podem ter certeza, vocês estão vendo aí, não começaram a investir em voz, sintam-se infelizmente já um pouco atrasados, mas foi até que a Thalita disse, né? Está no começo, ainda está no começo, não dá para entrar, o trem partiu da estação, mas ainda está devagar, ainda dá para entrar no trem e sentar na janela. Mas vamos nos mexer, temos que nos mexer, né, turma? Exatamente.